Hello everybody and welcome again to our Protractor webinar series. Today we're going to do a webinar and it's actually going to be the first part of a three-part webinar series on inventory management. We just find that there's so much information on the inventory to take advantage of that we're going to kind of slice it up and hopefully break it down into smaller bite-sized chunks so that everybody can walk away with something from these meetings. As always, our webinars are 45 minutes of instruction. We'll take the last 15 minutes of the webinar to deal with any questions that you guys might have pertaining to today's topics. And as always, the webinar recordings and handouts, which is just a little handout sheet for you guys to work through, are all loaded in the help system under the section webinars. So you guys will have access to that. You can pass that out to your staff and go back and look at it at any point in time in the future if that's anything you'd like to do. So let's dive in. We've got a lot of information to cover today. So we are going to talk today in part one of a three-part series. Essentially, so that you get a grab of where we're going with this, we're going to take the Inventory General tab and we're going to slice and dice it just so that everybody understands what I mean by the Inventory tab. This is it. So any inventory record is going to have a couple of different tabs as they're referred to, and today our focus is really going to be on covering all the entries on the General tab and working with a couple of the menus on top of these tabs. So let's dive right in. All right, so my first question in the agenda is going to be, why is inventory important? Just as an FYI for everybody that's on the seminar, I do most of the implementations for the software setup. And it surprises me sometimes because people want to run general ledgers, they want to have the control, but when it comes to entering their inventory, they tend to be a little bit shy. Either they don't have a good inventory list or they don't have a good understanding of all the effect on it. So I want to talk about that just a little bit to set the stage for where we're going. We're also going to talk about inventory in action, meaning we're going to show you how it interacts. And of course, we're going to work off the General tab. We're going to talk about inventory searches, fractional quantities, unit conversion and buy factors, inventory types, inventory core units, inventory control, reorders, and again, all of this is going to come from the Setup tab on the inventory record itself. Inventory is very important. It interacts with most everything you do all day long, and just to give you a few samples of that, material purchases. Most of your purchases are inventory. Obviously, some of them aren't. Inventory or material returns. A lot of this affects inventory. Your material warranties. If it's a warranty, a manufacturer's warranty on a material item. Inventory interacts quite a bit with work orders and invoices, estimates, counter and cash sales. So all of these things, and probably a whole lot more, have something to do, have some relationship with inventory itself. I want to talk about the impact that inventory has on the financial side and the reporting side of your business. So let's take a look at this for just a minute, and just in an overview. Inventory has a major impact on your balance sheet under the inventory asset. Essentially, in a nutshell, it's the inventory units, how many do I have, times the unit cost, and that goes to the balance sheet. Also, inventory returns or material returns, any items that would be inventory, are going to have an impact on the dollar value that you see in that inventory asset. Inventory is also going to affect your income statement under the expenses because it has a cost of sales. So there's a cost associated with most materials that you sell, and if the inventory costs aren't entered properly, then we can't really report back to you your cost of sales accurately. And this is one that affects most people. Inventory adjustments. I constantly see people doing recounts. Obviously, it's a fact of life, but we want to understand that that does have an effect on the income statement. Every time you recount an item, it's going to be the number of items you recount at the unit cost. that money has to go somewhere, and it will go into an expense category for inventory adjustments. The last thing I'll bring up to you to spark some interest is in your reporting. The vital signs report, if you don't know about the vital signs report, I certainly encourage you to take a look, because it is going to do just that, report your vital signs. And if we don't have your parts cost right, again focusing on inventory, then we don't have a good cost. We're then not going to be able to look at a good gross profit dollar or profit margin, and of course any element of that is going to affect the overall. It's also going to be on your inventory reports. There are reports that will report to you your inventory cost, summary reports, historical cost reports, and then the same thing with your purchases, supplier invoices, return items, and consignment if you use consignment. So it's a vital organ of the system. It's a vital organ of the financial reports. Those of you that were on the last meeting, we did some poll questions, and we want to continue with that because we get a lot of good feedback. So, Jeff, do you want to bring up the poll question, or?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Okay, guys, so on your screen, you're seeing a poll question. Do you feel that your current inventory balances in the protractor accurately reflect your true stock levels? Currently, we're seeing 76% of the group say that their inventory is accurate. Actually, it's now at 77%, and 23% say it is not accurate. So we're going to see what we can do to get you guys on track if this is something that you want to track to get your inventory under control. So let's go ahead and dive into the content today. Inventory searches. We're going to cover a couple of areas of inventory searches. I want to start with searches from the work order itself. So let me just get myself organized here a little bit. We'll go out to inventory. And essentially, there are three prime ways that you can search inventory from a work order. Number one, highlight the material item, and you have the ability to select inventory lookup. Number one, you can highlight the item and right-click and go to an inventory lookup. And the third way is you can actually go to the material properties and search your inventory from this screen. Let's actually initiate a search here, so I'm just going to click on my inventory search. And there are what are called automatic inventory searches. This is a little bit new and may take a little bit more training to get yourself fully understanding and how it works. But what happens when we search inventory off of a work order, first of all, the automatic search is going to look to your default or your first profit center, meaning whichever one is on top, the default search is that profit center. Also, it will bring up a material definition, which is entered on that material line within the service package itself. And it will always search for a minimum quantity of 1. This is your default automatic search that comes forward. So things that are important, definitions become fairly important. And of course, keeping your quantities up to date become fairly important to make these searches work. And if you look at my screen, you're going to see I didn't click any buttons. I just said inventory lookup, and I'm seeing all my engine oil filters that match that search criteria. Now, I obviously have the ability to change the search around by using any one of the search parameters listed on top. And I probably should say not any one, but any one or as many as you would need. So the searches will be on any combination of information that you guys want to put in. So if you want to move around, you can change your quantities, you can change your definitions, part numbers. You can see on the screen everything that's there. When your search is complete, meaning the information is presented back to you, you have options. Each one of these columns represents the different material information below, and you can search and organize this list by these columns. An example, I can search and organize by part number, ascending or descending. I can search by my in-stock values, again, ascending or descending. I can search by cost. So any one of your header columns will give you a search criteria. Let's talk a little bit about the inventory materials menu group up at the top. Believe it or not, folks, I'm coming to inventory from a work order. I do have the ability to add a brand new inventory item. These are some pretty powerful features, so I say it's there, but understand it and proceed with caution. You would create a brand new inventory item while you're in the inventory search. You have that capability. You have the capability to take a single item and edit that item, whether it's anything on the General tab, Pricing tab. You have the ability to edit an existing inventory item. You also have the ability to draw. An inventory draw can work in a couple of ways. You can simply double-click the item and it will automatically initiate a draw, meaning bring that item back to the work order. You can do a right-click draw, which will bring that item back. You can use the top menu draw, which would bring that item back. And a feature that I wonder if many people take advantage of is what's called a draw and add. A draw and add is going to let you draw items and stay on the inventory screen. In other words, if I just click on draw, if I just click on draw, it's going to bring that item back. It's going to close my inventory lookup. But if I select draw and add, I can draw that item back to the work order and stay on the inventory screen and select other items. One thing you'll need to know is if you use the draw and add, the last item that you would select is going to populate the line that you came to inventory from. So the last item would populate the oil filter line. Any items selected previously are just going to make another entry into that service package. So it's a nice feature, so keep it in mind. Other things that are on the inventory material record is what's called a display price level. Several shops will set up multiple price levels. In my example, I've got 4 different price levels that I would use for different conditions. Level 1, referenced as the default, is usually going to be my retail sell price, what most people would pay for it. But I do have the ability to set up other tiers of pricing. An example, a fleet customer, a wholesale customer, employees. And while we're on the topic, you can have as many price levels as you would like. So here you see my price level 1 is displayed. If I want to look at price level 2, then I change it, and then it would recognize whatever my price level 2 is. We'll talk just a little bit more about that in a minute, but you can select if you guys will watch this column over here when I switch this around, you see the price levels change. I also have the ability to check the box to say, show me my on-order quantities. So I now know I may be low on one of the items, but they're on order. I'm assuming then that they're going to come in within the next couple of hours and the next day. So those items are all available for you on this screen. If we move over to the action menu group, let's stay with the columns for a second. We have what's called a column chooser. If you select your column chooser, you have the ability to identify which columns you want to show and which columns you don't. If you'll notice, in my case, I do not have the manufacturer's suggested retail price checked to display. If I want to see that, I simply check the box, and now you see the MSRP comes in. If I don't want to see these things, I can uncheck the boxes, and they won't show. So this allows me to identify what information I want to see on the screen, and you have an all, which would check all boxes, or a none, which I doubt I would want to use because I really want to see some information, and I'll just close that up. Now, that's going to remember, those column choosers are going to remember your settings, so the next time you come to the inventory search, you're going to have the exact same settings, so it will remember those settings. We also have the ability to select a new search. So if I say new search, all it does is remove my definition because that's all was there, and it will allow me to go ahead and do a new search. And I also have the ability to select a specific service category or search all. Just a footnote for everybody, if you select all service categories, it's probably going to be in your best interest to have one of the other search parameters entered, because otherwise it's going to bring up your entire list of inventory and probably slow things down just a little bit. So remember, we have the ability to search on the parameters, the menu options, and of course the way I organize my display. And essentially that's your inventory search from the work order level. Okay. Let's talk just real briefly about the price levels, just real briefly. Your price level displays give you the ability to identify if you want to show one or more price levels on your inventory lookup screen. That is what's called a location setting. Okay, so from setup, we go to location setting, we click on inventory, and here we can identify what price levels we want to display and which would be the default. To give you an example, let me just check these other price levels. In other words, I want to see all 4 levels of pricing. I'm going to click on save, so it saves that change. I'm going to go back to my work order. I'm going to then go back to my inventory lookup, and now you'll see I have the level 1, 2, 3, and level 4 price levels displayed. Okay, so you have options that you can use, all right? If you don't want to display them, you don't have to have the setting because you can flip back and forth between them here. Or if you want to see them all, you can bring them up on the work order. And we will talk a little bit more later on in a future webinar about some of these options. Another feature that I don't think enough people take advantage of is when you buy inventory from somebody you have an online supplier connection set up in your software, those supplier connections will automatically search your inventory also. Right-click on the oil filter. I'm going to select Catalog Lookup. I've currently got an O'Reilly connection set up, and if I want to look for the oil filter, I just click on Check. Now watch what happens. When I do a check, it also is going to be looking to my inventory, and if you folks will notice right here, it's located that exact same part number in my inventory. It identifies that I have inventory, and it will tell me my in-stock quantities. Now, as a footnote, it will only tell you that you have inventory if you have in-stock quantity. If I didn't have any quantities in my inventory for this part number, it would not identify that as an inventoried item. So it's a great opportunity. If that's the item I want, as you know, I'll check the box. I'm going to click on Apply. And when I search inventory through my catalog, it will ask me, where do I want to pull the item from? Do I want to bring one of them from inventory, or would I prefer to do an online purchase? In this case, I'll just select inventory. That's the item that comes back. So there's some of your searches in the system from the work order. Let's just go back and take a quick review. First of all, inventory lookup is available from the main ribbon, the line item right-click option, or the material line properties. Automatic searches are going to bring the default profit center, service package line definition, and a minimum quantity of 1. Other searches, as you know, would be other profit centers, things of that nature. Search results display and sorting options. Select a column header. The system will then display ascending or descending based upon that column header. Inventory materials menu group, we have the ability to add, edit, draw, and add. Your display price levels, show on order quantities. The action menu group will give you the ability to set your column choosers and reset back to the original state. You can do new searches, and close. Your price levels, you can set up at your location. If you want to display those, that's all identified in the location settings. and then we can use the catalog lookup, and it will also search against our inventory.